Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a story that starts quietly, just me, a dusty jewelry box, and the kind of laughter that makes your chest tighten. You probably won't survive this story if you've ever been underestimated by your own family. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to watch the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's comfortably embark on tonight's journey. It's a Thursday evening, the kind of humid day when even the air feels judgmental. My son Adam and his wife Chloe are sitting in my living room. I'm pretending to be busy with my tea, stirring it longer than needed. Chloe is scrolling on her phone, the sound of her manicured nails tapping the screen filling the silence. Then it begins that laugh. "Mom," she says with the tone of someone rehearsing, "pity you still keep that old jewelry box, the one with those shiny costume pieces." Her words stretch out like she's describing a child's craft project. I smile faintly, even though something in my chest deflates a little. Adam joins in, saying, "Yeah, Mom, you could have fooled us. Those gems look straight out of a souvenir shop." I let them talk. They think they're joking, but that's how family humiliation usually begins, softly, under the disguise of humor. People still debate whether it's better to confront disrespect directly or let silence do the teaching. I've always been the silence type, though silence has its own price. I pick up the jewelry box, an old mahogany thing with tiny scratches that look like wrinkles of time, and run my fingers across the lid. "Your father bought these for me when we were just starting out," I say. It's not a defense, just a memory trying to survive in the room. Chloe tilts her head, her lips curling in a polite smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "That's sweet," she says. "But you know, back then, everyone thought glass was diamond." The remark hangs in the air like cigarette smoke. I pretend not to care, but deep inside I feel the quiet sting of being dismissed, not just the jewelry, but the story behind it, the years that shaped it. In that moment, I realize that people like Chloe measure worth by receipts, not by memories. Later that night, after they leave, I sit at the table alone with the jewelry box. The house feels heavier, as if even the walls heard their laughter. I open the lid and stare at the pieces. A ruby necklace, a pair of sapphire earrings, a bracelet with emerald inlays. They glitter faintly in the dim light, and for a second I can almost see my younger self wearing them. The soft blush, the excited smile, the way my husband looked at me like I was the only jewel in the room. You'd think something like jewelry wouldn't matter at my age. But when you're older, everything you kept becomes a mirror of who you were, who you loved, and who remembers. Family experts often say older parents cling to objects as emotional anchors, not possessions. I think that's true. For me, every piece in that box holds a memory. Anniversaries, birthdays the night Adam was born. Each gem is a story I've never told fully. I decide to do something impulsive, something I haven't done in years. I want to know if Chloe's right. I want to know the truth. The next morning, I take the bus downtown, jewelry box wrapped in an old silk scarf. It's funny, I used to drive everywhere, but now I find comfort in the slow hum of public transport. The people around me are strangers, but they look kinder than my own daughter-in-law did last night. An elderly man next to me asks, "Is that a gift?" I smile. "Something like that," I say. He nods the way old people nod when they understand too much. When I get off at Main Street, the smell of roasted chestnuts and city dust greets me. I head toward an appraisal shop I'd once seen near the pharmacy. Inside, a small bell jingles as I push the door. The appraiser, a woman in her 40s with sharp glasses and a kinder smile, looks up. "What can I help you with?" she asks. I hesitate, then place the box on the counter. I'd like to know if these are worth anything. She opens the box slowly, the kind of careful touch that already feels respectful. One by one, she lifts each piece, examining them under a magnifying lamp. Time stretches. Then she says, "These are interesting. Not fake, not cheap, just interesting." She asks if I'd mind leaving them for a formal appraisal. I nod. Of course, I say, pretending to be calm, but my heart is drumming. When I leave the shop, the sun feels brighter. I walk past a cafe where young people laugh over their phones, and I realize something strange. It's not the jewelry I want validated. It's my memory. That night, Adam calls. "Hey, Mom, did you eat?" He asks casual, as if nothing happened. I could tell him I went downtown, that I handed the jewelry to someone who might change everything. But I don't. Instead, I say, "Yes, I did." There's comfort in secrets, especially when they're harmless, at least for now. Before hanging up, I hear Chloe in the background say, "Tell her not to worry about those old things." Adam relays it with a laugh. I just murmur, "Sure," and look toward the empty chair where my husband used to sit. They say trust is like glass. Once cracked, it reflects differently forever. That night, I polish each of my remaining memories like gemstones, wondering which ones are still real. Maybe Chloe's words were cruel. Maybe they were careless. But either way, they pushed me towards something I'd forgotten the thrill of rediscovering what's mine. Before bed, I check the clock. Tomorrow, the appraiser will call. My hands tremble slightly as I place the jewelry box back on the dresser. Outside, the wind rattles the window like faint laughter. I whisper to myself, "We'll see who's fake." And as I drift to sleep, I imagine my husband's smile somewhere in the past, watching amused as if he knows what's coming next. Dinner at my house used to mean warmth, the smell of garlic and olive oil, soft music playing in the background, and laughter that didn't sting. Now it means silence broken by forced politeness and the clinking of forks against porcelain plates. It's been 3 days since the appraisal visit, and I haven't heard back yet. That silence hums louder than the television in the living room. When Adam and Chloe arrive, the air shifts immediately. You know that strange tension families get when everything looks normal, but nothing feels right? That's what sits between us at the table tonight, invisible but heavy. Adam takes his usual seat, scrolling through his phone as if I'm the background noise. Chloe starts arranging her napkin, wearing that I'm helping smile. "You made soup again, Mom," she says, her voice sharp in its sweetness. "You really should try new recipes. There's this quinoa thing trending on TikTok." I laugh lightly, more for myself than for her. "Well," I reply, "my generation grew up on flavor, not filters." It earns a quick blink of confusion, maybe even irritation. One joke down, 2 to go. Dinner conversations with family have their own rhythm. Blame gossip, then reluctant gratitude. Tonight we skip straight to the blame part. Adam sighs. "Chloe was saying we might help you redecorate, maybe get rid of some of this old stuff." He gestures vaguely toward the shelves where my late husband's photos and antique figurines live. The word stuff slices deeper than he realizes. It's not just stuff. It's 30 years of a life built from small sacrifices, his college tuition, his first car, even the down payment on this house. People still debate whether adult children owe their parents gratitude or if love should be payment enough. Maybe gratitude is a dying custom. I set down my spoon slowly. "Redecorate, huh?" I say. "And where would you like to start? The memories or the wallpaper?" Chloe giggles. "Not the friendly kind." Adam groans softly. "Mom, come on, it's just, you could make this place feel fresher." The irony hits me. They talk about freshness while the room still smells of my cooking, the same flavor that once made them smile. Halfway through dinner, Chloe's eyes drift toward the jewelry box on the counter. "You still haven't put those away?" she asks. Her voice is casual, but there's curiosity there, maybe even suspicion. "I thought you said they were fake," I say evenly. She shrugs. "Well, I figured you might as well keep them. They look sentimental. It's the tone of someone describing an antique chair about to be thrown away." The phone rings. I freeze. My heart beats a little faster because I just know it's the appraiser. I excuse myself and answer in the hallway, trying to sound calm. The voice on the other end is warm but cautious. "Mrs. Langford, we've completed the preliminary analysis. I'll send the full report tomorrow, but one of your pieces appears to be quite old. Possibly Edwardian. I'd advise a professional auction evaluation." My throat goes dry. "Edwardian," I repeat, my voice small. "Yes," she confirms. "Around early 1900s. The workmanship is exquisite." I thank her, hang up, and stand there for a full minute. I feel both vindicated and afraid. Vindicated because I was right. Not crazy, not clinging to trinkets. Afraid because the truth changes things. Family dynamics. Experts say wealth doesn't create greed, it just unmasks it. I know what's about to happen once Adam and Chloe learn. I take a deep breath, paste on a neutral smile, and return to the table. "Everything okay?" Adam asks his fork midair. "Fine," I reply. "Just the appraisal shop confirming an appointment." I don't lie, I just omit. Chloe raises her eyebrows, her mind already working. "Appraisal. You really went through with it," she says. I nod slowly. "Yes, just to see." She laughs softly, the kind of laugh that doesn't invite others to join. "Well, at least you'll finally know the truth." I respond, "Yes, finally." There's something almost cinematic about sitting across from people who've doubted you, knowing more than they do. Like an actor in a play waiting for the big reveal. The soup's gone cold, but my mood isn't. I find myself watching them differently, the way Chloe's eyes dart toward the jewelry box again, how Adam pretends not to notice. I can almost hear my husband's voice in my head. Let them underestimate you. Love. It's cheaper than revenge. That man had a sense of humor sharper than any diamond. After dinner, they leave early, claiming they have an early morning. I know the code they're going to talk about me, maybe even mock the appraisal idea again, but I don't care this time. I close the door behind them, lock it, and stand there in the hallway listening to the faint echo of my own heartbeat. Then I start to laugh quietly, not out of bitterness, but disbelief. How strange it is that truth needs witnesses, but dignity doesn't. Later that night, I sit by the window, the jewelry box on my lap. The moonlight hits the emerald bracelet, scattering tiny green reflections across the table like little secrets. I think about how many times we women hide our worth just to keep peace in the family. People still debate whether silence in marriage and motherhood is a form of strength or surrender. Maybe it's both. Maybe silence is where real patience lives. I pour myself a small glass of wine, something my husband used to call liquid courage, and toast the air. To the Edwardian era, I whisper, smiling, and to modern fools who think they know everything. When I finally crawl into bed, I realize how light I feel. It's not about the jewelry anymore. It's about knowing I was right and knowing that truth, like a gemstone, doesn't need to shout to shine. Tomorrow, the official report arrives, and when it does, that old dinner laughter will sound very different in memory. Morning sunlight leaks through the curtains, soft and golden, like a quiet apology for all the nights that came before. I wake earlier than usual, my heart already tapping out a rhythm of curiosity. Today's the day the appraisal report arrives. It's funny, at my age, you'd think nothing surprises you anymore, but anticipation still has a way of turning the stomach into a fluttering birdcage. I make coffee the old-fashioned way, slow-dripped and stubborn, and sit by the kitchen window, where the mail carrier usually passes around 9. I check the time twice, then 3 times. People still debate whether waiting is a form of patience or just disguised anxiety. I decide it's both. When the envelope finally drops through the slot, I nearly spill my coffee. It's thick, cream-colored with that expensive textured paper that promises serious news. I slid it open carefully, the way one might open a letter from a lover long gone. Inside, the words confirm what the woman on the phone already hinted: authentic. Early Edwardian craftsmanship. Estimated market value significant. There's even a note about provenance research. Apparently one of the makers was a known artisan whose designs appeared in royal collections. I sit there in silence, staring at the letter as if it's a mirror reflecting a younger me, the woman who once wore those jewels to dinner parties where laughter came easy and respect wasn't optional. My chest tightens, not from pride, but from something deeper, a strange grief for all the times I doubted myself because others did first. I glance toward the hallway mirror. My reflection looks calm, but inside I feel a storm brewing, the quiet kind that changes landscapes without thunder. That's when I notice it. Behind the mirror's wooden frame, there's a tiny gap, a corner slightly lifted, like it's been pried open before. My curiosity, freshly awakened, pulls me closer. I tug gently, and the backing creaks. Inside the narrow space, folded neatly, is an old envelope yellowed with age. My husband's handwriting sprawls across it, for her when she doubts. My throat closes. He always had a flair for timing, even from the grave. I sit down, trembling slightly, and open it. Inside is a crumpled store receipt dated 1978 from a jeweler in London. But the name on the buyer line isn't his. It's a man named Arthur Hemsworth, the same name mentioned in the appraisal report as the artisan. I read it again, slower this time, trying to connect dots that have waited decades to be seen. My husband never mentioned knowing anyone by that name. Could he have bought the pieces secondhand, or were they given? There's also a note handwritten on hotel stationery. He said these belonged to someone who couldn't keep them anymore. Wear them proudly. I feel my heart stutter. Who was he? And who couldn't keep them? My husband's job often took him abroad, deals, exhibitions, antique shows, but I never questioned the gifts he brought home. People still debate whether trust in marriage is about loyalty or simply the comfort of not wanting to know. Maybe it's both. I carry the envelope to the kitchen table, lay it beside the appraisal report, and stare at them side by side. The receipt, the note, the proof, all pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know existed. The logical part of me says to shrug it off. Maybe he just stumbled upon a lucky find. But another part whispers darker things. Maybe these jewels have their own story, one that doesn't start with me. I make another cup of coffee, this one stronger. My mind keeps looping back to one detail. He said these belonged to someone who couldn't keep them anymore. That sounds like heartbreak, doesn't it? Like a goodbye wrapped in gold. I laugh softly, my second joke of the day, because what else can you do when ghosts start sending you evidence? Later in the afternoon, Adam calls. "Hey, Mom, Chloe wants to know if you need help with the appraisal stuff," he says casually, pretending not to pry. I picture Chloe beside him, mouthing words, urging him to dig for details. "I'm fine," I say. "It was interesting." There's a pause. "So they really checked it?" he asks. "They did," I reply, keeping my tone even. "Turns out your father had good taste." I can almost hear Chloe whispering off camera, "Ask her how much it's worth," but Adam doesn't. Maybe he's learning that silence can be a power move too. When we hang up, I sit quietly for a while. The jewelry box is open again on the counter, each piece glowing like it's remembering something. I slip on the emerald bracelet, the metal cool against my wrist, and feel a small surge of confidence. Not the kind that comes from money or validation, but from finally owning your story, even the mysterious parts. There's a superstition my grandmother used to repeat: objects remember what people forget. I used to laugh at it, but now I wonder if she was right. The jewelry, the receipt, the hidden note, all of them carried a secret across decades waiting for the right day to be found. Maybe today was it. That night I dream of London streets, misty cobbled, lit by gas lamps. A man hands a velvet box to another man and says, "For her when she doubts." When I wake, the words echo in my head. I don't know if it's memory or imagination, but either way, it feels real. The next morning I make a decision. I'll visit that pawn shop again, not to sell, but to ask more questions. Maybe they can trace the original owner. Maybe I'll find out why my husband never told me the full story. The truth might be messy, but it's mine to face now. Before I leave, I tuck the receipt into my purse. It feels almost like carrying a ticket one way, no return. I look around the house one last time before heading out. The air smells of last night's stew, the clock ticks softly, and for the first time in years, I feel like I'm walking towards something, not away from it. The bus ride downtown feels different this time, less like an errand and more like a pilgrimage. I sit by the window, the jewelry box wrapped neatly inside my purse, the old receipt tucked carefully in the side pocket. Outside, the city scrolls by in pieces, a man selling flowers at the corner, teenagers laughing at something I'll never understand, an old couple holding hands as if time had forgotten them. Funny how strangers can look more like family than the people who share your blood. People still debate whether family is defined by DNA or by who stands beside you when it rains. I've started to lean toward the second one. When I arrive at the pawn shop, the air smells like metal and dust, two scents that always seem to hang around places where secrets trade hands. The same woman from before the appraiser with sharp glasses greets me with a polite nod. "Mrs. Langford," she says. "I didn't expect you back so soon." Her tone isn't suspicious, just curious. I found something, I reply, placing the old receipt and note on the counter. "Thought you might find it interesting." She adjusts her glasses, studies the paper for a long moment, then raises her brows. "Arthur Hemsworth," she murmurs. "That's not a name you see every day." He wasn't just a jeweler, he was almost mythical. His pieces were hand-set, rarely sold, mostly gifted. Some even say he never repeated a design. I blink, surprised. "Gifted to whom?" She shrugs. "That's the mystery. There are rumors, affairs, lost heiresses, secret collectors. His story's half history, half gossip." She turns the receipt over, running her finger across the faded ink. "If your husband really bought this from Hemsworth, it means these aren't just authentic. They might have a traceable legacy." She looks up at me with the kind of interest I haven't seen in years, not since people stopped seeing me as someone who could surprise them. "Would you allow me to contact a colleague of mine?" she asks. "He's with a historical auction house. They might want to take a look." I nod. "Yes, please." The words feel heavier than they should, like I've just agreed to reopen a sealed memory. As she makes a few phone calls, I glance around the shop. A cracked clock ticks above the counter. A collection of old watches glints under fluorescent light. Everything here has a past, even if it's been pawned for survival. I realize something unsettling. Maybe I've been pawning pieces of myself for approval all these years, just not for money. When she hangs up, she smiles. "They're interested. If you can bring the jewelry next week, they'll authenticate it for the historical registry and possibly suggest an auction date. The word auction lands softly, but echoes loud in my mind. An auction means value, recognition, proof. But it also means exposure, and I can already imagine Chloe's reaction. We talk a bit more about logistics, and before leaving, I thank her again. She looks at me thoughtfully. You know, Mrs. Langford, sometimes old things don't just hold value, they hold voices. Maybe your husband wanted you to find this now, not before. I smile faintly. He was always dramatic, I say. Maybe he planned one last twist for me. Outside, the afternoon light feels warmer, almost golden. I decide to stop by a small cafe I haven't visited in years. I sit near the window, order a cup of chamomile tea, and open the envelope again. The handwriting on that note looks softer, in daylight, more human, less mysterious. I wonder if my husband ever felt guilty, not for owning the jewelry, but for what it represented. Some historians say Hemsworth often gifted his pieces to women who'd endured public humiliation, symbols of resilience wrapped in beauty. The romantic in me wants to believe that's why my husband bought them as an apology for the years he wasn't home, or the times I waited up for him with dinner gone cold. Still, a part of me wonders if I'm romanticizing betrayal. People still debate whether forgiveness is wisdom or just emotional amnesia. Either way, I sip my tea and let the warmth remind me that some answers only arrive when we stop asking. When I get home, I find a message on my phone. It's from Adam. Hey, Mom, we were thinking of stopping by this weekend. Maybe go through some of Dad's old stuff together. The timing makes me laugh. Of course they want to come now. I text back a polite, "Sure, that sounds nice." That evening, I pull out the jewelry box again and set each piece on the dining table one by one. Under the soft lamplight, they glow like they know what's coming, the kind of glow that only truth can give. I imagine the auction room velvet curtains, whispering bidders, the gavel falling like thunder. For the first time in a long time, I feel seen, even if only in imagination. Before bed, I place the jewelry box back in its usual spot, but keep the receipt under my pillow. Not for superstition, though, maybe a little for luck, but because I want to dream of the past clearly. When I close my eyes, I see my husband again, standing under some faraway London streetlight, smiling in that secretive way he always did when he had a surprise planned. Only now, I'm ready for it. Rumors have a strange way of moving faster than facts, especially within families that thrive on pretending everything's fine. By Friday morning, I can already feel the air shifting. My neighbor, Mrs. Clark, the unofficial news agency of our street, knocks on my door carrying a pie. Heard something interesting at the grocery store, she says, placing it down like a peace offering. Your son's wife was telling people you've been tricked by some scam appraiser. Said you were being taken advantage of. I stare at her, the smell of cinnamon wafting up between us. Oh, I manage to say, forcing a smile. That's fascinating. She pats my arm with that sympathetic touch older women give each other when words are too polite to help. People can be cruel when they're scared, she says quietly. Don't let it rattle you. After she leaves, I sit at the kitchen table, pie untouched, and let the silence do its cruel work. Scam appraiser. That's how Chloe chose to frame it. It's not enough that she mocked me, now she's painting me as senile, gullible, a woman past her prime who doesn't know when she's being fooled. It's a strange kind of pain, not sharp like betrayal, but heavy, like being erased. People still debate whether reputation matters after a certain age. But when your children are the ones rewriting your story, it suddenly matters a lot. I decide to call Adam. Sweetheart, I say, keeping my tone calm. I heard you and Chloe have been discussing my appraisal visit. There's a long pause. Then Mom. Don't take it personally. Okay, Chloe just worries about you getting scammed online. You know how these things go. I laugh softly, though it sounds nothing like humor. Online, Adam. I walked into the store myself. I didn't buy crypto. I verified jewelry. Another pause. Right, he says awkwardly. Look, maybe it's just people talking. You know Chloe means well. Ah, the famous defense, she means well. The same phrase that has excused generations of disrespect disguised as concern. Well, I reply slowly. Tell her I appreciate her concern, but the appraisal is quite real. I can hear him shifting the phone between hands, uncertain. You're not planning to sell it, right? He asks. There it is, the real fear. Not for me, but for what he might lose. I haven't decided, I say, and before he can continue, I end the call politely. I step outside for air, letting the sun warm my face. The neighborhood hums with that quiet suburban rhythm, lawnmowers, distant laughter, sprinklers ticking. And yet beneath the calm, I feel a subtle thrill. Let them whisper, let them underestimate me. That's what my husband used to say when people doubted him. The best revenge is outliving the rumor. I can almost hear him chuckling now, somewhere beyond reach. Later that day, I receive an email from the appraiser's colleague, the one at the historical auction house. It's brief but thrilling. Preliminary verification complete. Authenticity confirmed. Estimated range exceeds prior expectations. Would you be open to public exhibition prior to auction? My eyes widen. Exhibition. The kind of word that carries pride, prestige, and danger all at once. Because exhibitions attract attention, and attention attracts family members suddenly eager to reconcile. That evening, I attend a local book club at the community center, my attempt to stay social without having to talk too much. But even there, I can sense the ripple. Two women exchange glances when I walk in. One of them whispers, "That's her, the lady with the fake jewels." I almost laugh out loud. It's amazing how quickly people choose a version of the truth that entertains them the most. I sit down, open the book, and pretend to read, but inside I'm narrating the future. Because when the auction happens, when the truth finally stands under bright lights, they'll all remember these whispers and wish they'd spoken kinder. At home, I pour myself another glass of wine and write a list of everything I've learned in the past week. 1, validation never comes when you need it most. 2, gossip is faster than justice. 3, dignity has no audience, but shame always does. I laugh softly, bitterly, realizing how human it is to crave both peace and vindication at once. Maybe the two are never meant to coexist. I think about Chloe. I imagine her sitting in her immaculate kitchen, sipping from a designer mug, retelling the story of her poor mother-in-law being duped by some jewelry scam. The idea should hurt, but instead it amuses me, because I already know how this story ends, and this time I'm the author. Before bed, I take one last look at the jewelry box. Each gem glows faintly under the lamp, alive with quiet defiance. "You've been patient," I whisper to them. "Just a little longer." It feels silly talking to objects, but maybe Mrs. Clark was right. People are cruel when they're scared, and fear, I've learned, can make even the proudest woman lie to herself. I turn off the light, lie back, and let the darkness settle like velvet. Somewhere in that darkness, I imagine Chloe hearing about the auction. The press released the headline, "Local Woman Discovers Historic Edwardian Jewelry Worth a Fortune." I imagine her face, paling, her fingers tightening around her phone. A small, satisfying smile tugs at my lips as I drift to sleep. Because revenge doesn't always need confrontation. Sometimes it just needs patience and a well-documented receipt. Saturday morning begins with the low hum of rain tapping against my windows like a soft reminder that some storms arrive without thunder. I wake slowly, let the quiet soak in, and brew a cup of coffee strong enough to make my hands tremble. The newspaper lies untouched on the counter, but something makes me pull out the jewelry box instead. The pieces glitter faintly under the gray light, less like luxury, more like endurance. You'd be amazed how beautiful persistence looks when it catches even the faintest glow. I decide to take photos of the jewelry for the auction house's records, but when I open the bottom drawer of my old cabinet to find a clean background cloth, I discover something I hadn't seen in years, a shoebox filled with yellowed photographs. It's the kind of box that holds not just pictures, but the weight of forgotten decades. Inside are memories, our wedding, Adam as a toddler in the sandbox, me laughing beside a car we could barely afford. And then at the bottom, a photo that doesn't fit. It's my husband, unmistakably younger, standing beside a well-dressed man outside what looks like a European hotel. Behind them, a sign reads, "Hemsworth & Cone, London, 1978. I lean closer. My husband is smiling, yes, but not toward the camera, toward the man beside him. And that man is holding a familiar velvet box. My chest tightens. It's the same shape, the same clasp as mine. The photograph even captures the moment his hand rests protectively over it, like he's passing it on. The edges of the picture are cracked, and in the lower corner, someone scribbled something faint in pen. For her, when she doubts. I sink into my chair, staring at it as the rain grows louder. So it's true. My husband didn't just buy the jewelry. He was there with Hemsworth himself. The pieces weren't purchased, they were given. But why I start tracing possibilities? Maybe it was a business favor. My husband used to dabble in art brokering. Perhaps he helped Hemsworth with a deal. Or maybe it was something more personal, friendship, admiration, gratitude. Still, the phrase for her sticks like a splinter. Her. Not me by name, but her, whoever the intended woman was. People still debate whether love is truly selfless or if we all crave a kind of ownership over those we adore. I tell myself not to spiral, but the imagination of an old woman is a dangerous thing. My mind paints scenes, a smoky London cafe, whispered conversations, maybe even secrets exchanged in letters. The past is alive again, only I'm not sure I like what it's saying. To distract myself, I call Mrs. Clark and invite her over for tea. She arrives wrapped in her raincoat, smelling faintly of lavender and curiosity. I show her the photograph, expecting judgment, but instead, she leans in, fascinated. You know, she says there used to be a rumor about Hemsworth's last collection. They said he only gave it to women who reminded him of his late wife, or to men who had broken one's heart. She chuckles softly. Maybe your husband fit one of those categories. Her humor lands gently, but the thought lingers. I imagine my husband meeting Hemsworth, two men talking about love, regret, and legacy. Maybe the jewels were never about wealth. Maybe they were about making amends. Mrs. Clark takes another sip of tea. Whatever the story, she says, you found it, and that means it was meant for you, not anyone else. Her certainty feels like a warm coat on a cold day. After she leaves, I keep staring at the photo, unable to shake the sense that something in it wants to be remembered. So I frame it, and place it on my mantel next to my husband's urn. You've still got surprises left, haven't you? I mutter to the silent air. My third joke of the day. That night, Adam and Chloe come over unannounced. Chloe's wearing perfume strong enough to declare war, and Adam carries a nervous smile. We were just in the neighborhood, he says. I nearly laugh. We live 20 miles apart. Of course you were, I reply, motioning them in. The visit is short but charged. Chloe's eyes dart toward the jewelry box again, and she finally says, We heard you're talking to an auction house. Her tone is light, but the tension underneath could cut glass. Yes, I say they reached out after verifying the pieces. Apparently, they're part of a rare collection. Adam frowns. And, what happens then, I smile gently. Then they'll be shown. Maybe even auctioned. Chloe's voice drops honey over steel. Wouldn't that feel exposing? Having strangers pry into your personal things, I tilt my head. You mean like talking about them at grocery stores? Her face freezes just for a second, and Adam tries to diffuse it with an awkward laugh. Mom, she didn't mean any harm. I nod, I know. She just means well. After they leave, I can't help but feel both exhausted and strangely alive. The truth is no longer hiding behind a mirror or a rumor, it's on the mantel, framed in black wood, staring back at me. My husband, the mysterious artisan, and me, connected by something both beautiful and broken. Before bed, I whisper to his photo, Whatever you were trying to tell me, I'm listening now. Outside, the rain eases into silence. Somewhere deep down, I sense that this isn't just about jewelry anymore. It's about stories, who tells them, who twists them, and who finally claims them as their own. Sunday morning starts with a knock on the door, the kind that's too polite to be friendly. When I open it, the postman stands there holding an envelope with a deep green seal embossed with elegant gold lettering, Hollingsworth and Ames Fine Art and Antiquities. The name alone makes my stomach flutter. I sign for it, thank him, and close the door quietly behind me. My hands tremble as I slit the seal open with a butter knife. Inside, printed on thick cream paper, is the kind of letter that changes the air in a room, an official invitation to exhibit the jewelry at a private preview event before the auction. The words select collectors, historians, and press gleam on the page like the promise of vindication. I stand there for a moment, letting it sink in. My first thought isn't about money. It's about Chloe's smirk that day at dinner, the tone in Adam's voice when he said, Mom, you don't understand these things. Well, apparently I do. People still debate whether revenge is best served cold or classy. I think I'll take mine with velvet curtains and champagne. I set the letter on the table, pour myself a glass of orange juice, and reread it twice. The preview is in 2 weeks at the City Museum. 2 weeks to prepare to decide what to wear, to decide who to invite. My immediate instinct is to go alone. It feels poetic that way, but then I think of Adam. He's still my son, even if he's turned into the kind of man who forgets who built the ground he stands on. Maybe it's time he saw me not as his aging mother, but as a woman who lived a story bigger than his imagination. By noon, I call the auction house. A cheerful assistant named Daniel answers, and I can tell he's young by the hopeful enthusiasm in his tone. Mrs. Langford. We're thrilled you've accepted. We're arranging a small feature in the museum's collector journal. May we send a photographer? I almost laugh. A photographer? For me? He chuckles. For the jewelry, of course, but if you'd like, we can include a portrait. The story behind the pieces is compelling. I pause. The story behind the pieces. If only he knew. Yes, I say after a beat. Let's do that. The next few days blur into a strange rhythm of preparation. I iron blouses I haven't worn in years, polish the wooden frame of the jewelry box, even repaint my nails in a shade called Quiet Confidence. It feels absurd and delightful at once. Every night before bed, I reread the letter, half afraid it will disappear like a dream, and every morning it's still there, waiting patiently on the table. On Wednesday, Mrs. Clark stops by again, this time under the pretense of borrowing sugar. Her eyes immediately spot the envelope on the counter. "Oh, what's this?" she asks, pretending not to read the words already visible. I hand it to her anyway. "An invitation," I say simply. Her eyebrows lift. "Well, look at that, a real exhibition." She grins, her curiosity turning into pride. "You must be thrilled." I nod. "I suppose I am." Then she leans closer, lowering her voice. "You know they're going to be furious." I don't have to ask who they are. She means Adam and Chloe. Probably, I admit. But fury fades. Truth doesn't. She laughs softly. "You've got fire in you, Evelyn. I like that." Later that afternoon, the auction house sends a car to pick up the jewelry for preliminary documentation. The driver, polite and professional, hands me a receipt for custody. It's all very formal. Watching the jewelry leave the house feels strangely emotional, like sending your children off to college, but knowing they'll come back as something more than you ever imagined. That evening, Adam calls. "Mom," he starts in that careful tone adult children use when they're about to question your decisions. "We heard about the auction thing. Did you?" I reply, pretending surprise. "Chloe saw a post from the museum," he continues. "Why didn't you tell us?" I take a deep breath. "Because I wanted to handle it myself. I didn't think you'd be interested in fake jewelry." The silence that follows is delicious. "Mom, come on," he says finally. "You know, we didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said," I interrupt gently. "And that's fine. We all live with our words," he sighs. "Chloe's just worried. She says these people might take advantage of you." I can almost picture her beside him, arms folded, pretending to be protective. "Tell Chloe not to worry," I say. "They've already taken the jewelry. If it was fake, I suppose I'll find out in front of an audience." Another silence. Then in a smaller voice, Adam says, "Do you want us to come?" I think about it. The easy answer is no, but the better one. The one that teaches is yes, yes, I say finally. "You should see the truth with your own eyes." That night, as I wash the dishes, I catch my reflection in the kitchen window. The woman staring back looks older, yes, but sharper somehow, like a diamond that's been cut by experience. People often say aging is a process of loss, but maybe it's more like refining, burning away what's cheap to reveal what's real. Over the next week, I prepare the way one prepares for a reckoning. I practice my posture, rehearse calm smiles in the mirror, even try on my late husband's favorite brooch. Not one of the famous jewels, just a small silver rose he once gave me after an argument. He'd said every thorn has a reason. At the time, I thought it was poetry. Now I know it was a warning. The night before the exhibition, I can't sleep. I make tea and sit in the living room surrounded by faint lamplight. The framed photograph of my husband and Hemsworth catches my eye again. I take it down, trace their faces with my fingertip, and whisper, "Tomorrow's the day, you old mystery." There's no reply, of course, just the hum of the refrigerator and the steady rhythm of my heart. Proof that some things still work even after years of neglect. The morning arrives crisp and bright. The museum gleams like something out of a movie, marble floors, tall glass doors, people in tailored suits moving with rehearsed grace. Daniel greets me in the foyer with a warm smile. "Ms. Langford, welcome. The jewelry looks stunning under the lights." "You'll see." He offers his arm, old-fashioned charming, and leads me to the exhibition room. And there they are under soft spotlights, my pieces displayed on velvet stands behind glass. The ruby necklace glows like captured fire. The sapphire earrings gleam like frozen tears. The emerald bracelet hums with quiet strength. People mill about, murmuring admiration. "Exquisite," someone whispers. "The craftsmanship is divine," says another. I stand quietly, pretending not to listen, but my chest feels full, not with pride exactly, but with the strange, gentle ache of being seen. Then I spot them, Adam and Chloe standing awkwardly near the back. Chloe's trying to look composed, but her eyes are wide, scanning the display. Adam's hands are in his pockets, his jaw tight. I walk toward them slowly. "You came," I say. "Of course," Adam replies, avoiding my gaze. "We didn't realize it was this big." Chloe forces a smile. "It's lovely, really. I just didn't think they'd look so real," I offer. She nods, her cheeks flushing. "Yes, real." Daniel approaches just then, holding a brochure. "Mrs. Langford, would you like to see the catalog listing the collections already generating interest among private buyers?" He hands me the booklet and I skim it quickly, my name printed neatly under the title, The Langford Hemsworth Collection. For a moment, I can't breathe. My husband's name and mine side by side again after all these years. It feels like a reunion no one expected. Adam leans in, reading over my shoulder. "Hemsworth," he asks. "Wait, isn't that?" I nod. "The jeweler. Your father knew him." Chloe frowns. "I thought you said he just bought them at an antique shop," I smile faintly. "So did I." The rest of the evening moves in a dreamlike blur. Reporters ask questions, guests sip champagne, and people pose for photos beside the display. At one point, a curator leans over and whispers, "We believe this collection was intended as a symbolic tribute, gifts of apology and admiration from Hemsworth's final years." I don't ask to whom. Maybe that's not the point anymore. Maybe what matters is that these pieces and the story behind them found their way home. When it's over, the lights dim, and I stand for a moment alone in front of the glass case. My reflection blends with the jewels' age and beauty, memory, and proof all shimmering together. Adam approaches quietly. "Mom?" He says, his voice low, sincere, almost boyish. "I'm sorry, we shouldn't have joked. We didn't realize." I turn to him and smile. "You're realizing now. That's enough." Chloe joins her eyes, glistening. "They're breathtaking," she says softly. "You are too." It's the first honest thing she's said to me in years. As we walk out of the museum together, the city lights spill across the street like gold dust. The cool night air feels like a blessing. Adam offers me his arm, awkward, hesitant, and I take it. Not as a symbol of forgiveness, but as a reminder that even fractured families can find their footing in small, unspoken gestures. People still debate whether respect can be restored once it's broken. I think maybe it cannot through words, but through moments like this, walking side by side under streetlights, silent but connected. The world keeps turning, and somewhere deep inside me, I feel the quiet satisfaction of justice done gently. When I get home, I pour one last glass of wine, sit beside my husband's photo, and whisper, "You planned this, didn't you?" I imagine him laughing softly the way he used to when he'd win an argument. "You old fox," I murmur, smiling. "You finally gave me my moment." Outside, the rain has stopped. The sky is clear, and for the first time in years, I feel light, not because of the jewels or the money or even the vindication, but because I remembered who I was before anyone tried to tell me otherwise. The glow of the museum evening lingers for days afterward. It's strange how quickly the rhythm of your life can shift once you've been seen, truly seen for who you are. Every morning, I wake up and half expect to find that letter from the auction house was just a dream, but it's still there resting on the table beside the empty teacup. The newspaper has even printed a short piece about the exhibition Local Widow Uncovers Lost Hemsworth Collection. No mention of my name, thankfully, but the headline is enough to make my phone buzz with calls from numbers I haven't seen in years. Old friends, distant cousins, even a few neighbors who used to look right through me suddenly want to catch up. Funny how validation turns invisibility into importance overnight. People still debate whether recognition from strangers can heal the wounds caused by family, but I can tell you now it helps more than you'd think. Adam and Chloe don't call for 3 days after the event, and I savor the silence like a fine dessert. When they finally do, it's Chloe who speaks first. "We've been thinking," she says, her tone suspiciously careful. "Maybe you shouldn't handle the auction alone. There's a lot of paperwork and we just want to help." I can almost hear Adam's muted agreement in the background. I keep my voice calm. "I appreciate it," I say, "but Daniel and the team at the auction house are handling everything. I'm just along for the ride." There's a pause. Then Chloe adds, "You know this could change your life financially. It might be smart to have family involved, just so no one takes advantage." There it is again, that honeyed control disguised as concern. "Don't worry," I reply. "I've already signed the contracts. The proceeds will go directly into a trust." Another pause. A trust, she echoes. For who, I smile into the receiver, letting the silence tease her before I answer. For me. That evening, Adam shows up at my door, alone. No Chloe this time, which is already a good sign. He looks uneasy, the way he did when he was little, and knew he'd broken something valuable. "Mom," he starts, rubbing the back of his neck, "I need to apologize. For what I said, for letting Chloe talk the way she did." I nod, not rescuing him from the discomfort. He continues, "I didn't realize how much this meant to you." I tilt my head. "It's not just the jewelry, Adam. It's about being listened to. You can forgive almost anything if people just let you speak." He sits down across from me, sighing. "I guess I thought you were holding on to the past." I smile faintly. I was. But maybe that's not always bad. Sometimes the past is the only teacher left who's willing to tell you the truth. He laughs nervously, unsure whether that's a joke or a lesson. I let him decide. We talk for an hour about the exhibition, about Dad, even about Hemsworth. I show him the old photograph, the one from London, and for the first time he looks genuinely interested, rather than impatient. He really met the guy, he says, shaking his head. That's wild. I nod. Your father was full of surprises. Some I liked, some I didn't. Adam leans back, thoughtful. You ever think he might have known exactly what he was doing, leaving this behind for you? I glance at the picture again, at my husband's easy grin frozen in time. Every day, I say quietly. When Adam leaves that night, he hugs me before he goes tight, unhurried, the way sons only do when they finally understand they've misjudged you. It's a small gesture, but it feels like sunlight breaking through weeks of fog. I stand at the door long after he's gone, smiling to myself. Maybe respect can be relearned like a forgotten melody, but peace never comes without its interruptions. The next morning, Chloe storms in unannounced, her heels clacking against my wooden floor like a metronome of impatience. We need to talk, she declares. I raise an eyebrow. Good morning to you too. She sits without being invited, crossing her legs and folding her arms. I think you're making a mistake. I pour her tea anyway because nothing disarms arrogance like civility, and set it down in front of her. About what I ask. The auction, she says sharply. You don't know these people. They could be manipulating you. You should let us oversee it. Her voice trembles slightly, not with fear, but with frustration. I smile. Chloe, if they're manipulating me, they're doing a wonderful job of making me feel valued. Something I haven't experienced much from you. She flushes. That's not fair. I sip my tea calmly. Fairness isn't always kind, dear. Her lips part as if to argue, but I continue. You underestimated me, and maybe that's my fault. I let you. I let everyone think I was just quiet. But silence doesn't mean absence. Chloe, it means I was watching. For a moment, her face softens. I didn't mean to hurt you, she says, her tone fragile now. I just thought you were lonely. I laugh gently. Oh, I am lonely. But loneliness isn't weakness, it's just a quieter kind of strength. She looks down, tracing her finger along the rim of the teacup. Adam said you're putting the money into a trust. That's smart, she murmurs. It is, I reply, though I haven't told him the best part yet. Her eyes flick up. What's that? I smile. The trust will fund a community art program for widows. You'd be amazed how creative women get once no one's telling them what to do. Chloe blinks, stunned. So, none of it's for the family? Oh, it's all for the family, I say. Just not in the way you think. We sit in silence for a while. Outside, the afternoon light filters through the curtains, turning everything gold and soft. Chloe looks smaller somehow, her bravado slipping like a coat that no longer fits. I didn't realize how much this all meant to you, she says finally. That's because you never asked, I answer. You spoke, but you didn't listen. There's a difference. Before she leaves, she stands awkwardly by the door, unsure how to end the visit. You really are something you know, that she says. For years, I thought you were just quiet. I grin. That's my secret. People never fear quiet women until they start speaking. She laughs despite herself, and for a fleeting moment I see a glimpse of the girl my son once fell in love with, the one who hadn't yet learned to wear pride like armor. After she's gone, I sit by the window and watch the sun dip behind the trees. The house feels peaceful again, almost too peaceful. It's strange to think that this small piece of my life, this jewelry, this secret, has pulled so many truths out of hiding. People still debate whether family unity is built on honesty or illusion. I think it's both a fragile dance between what we reveal and what we protect. That evening, Daniel calls with final details about the auction date. Next Thursday, he says. We've already had preliminary offers from 3 collectors. His voice carries excitement but also reverence. This collection, it's making waves. You should be proud. I smile. I am. Not because it's valuable, but because it survived. He chuckles softly. That's the best kind of story, Mrs. Langford, the ones that endure. After we hang up, I pour myself a small glass of brandy. The night outside hums with crickets, and the framed photograph glimmers faintly under the lamplight. I lift the glass toward it in a quiet toast. You got what you wanted, darling, I say. You always liked attention. Then I add softly, but this time it's mine too. For a long time, I just sit there letting the amber liquid warm my throat, feeling the rhythm of the clock in the background. I think about all the women like me, overlooked, dismissed, silenced until one small act of self-belief turned their entire story around. The appraiser's visit, the receipt, the rumor, the photograph, the exhibition, it all led to this one quiet truth. Sometimes being underestimated is the best disguise life can give you. When I finally go to bed, I leave the curtains open so the moonlight can spill across the empty spot where the jewelry box once sat. It's gone now, but in a strange way, I feel fuller than I have in years. The absence doesn't ache, it glows. I realize then that what I've really uncovered isn't a lost collection, it's the part of myself I stopped appraising a long time ago. Auction day arrives with the kind of sky that can't decide whether to rain or shine. The light outside my window shifts, like mood lighting, soft, uncertain, a little anxious. I wake early, long before the alarm, and sit in the quiet kitchen with my cup of coffee cooling beside me. The air feels electric the way it does before a thunderstorm, except this time the lightning's in my chest. Funny how nerves can make even a 70-year-old woman feel 16 again. People still debate whether anticipation keeps you young or simply exposes what's left of your vanity. I think it's both. I take my time getting ready. The navy blue dress I choose isn't new, but it's tailored simple and real, much like me. I pin my hair up and fasten the small silver rose brooch, my husband's old gift. The jewelry from the collection, of course, is already at the auction hall, gleaming beneath glass, waiting for strangers to decide their worth. It feels strange, almost disloyal, to walk out of the house without them after all these years, like leaving pieces of myself behind for others to bid on. When I arrive at the venue, the hum of conversation greets me before the doors even open. It's a world of velvet ropes and murmured appraisals, people clutching catalogs like treasure maps. Daniel finds me quickly, his smile bright but nervous. Mrs. Langford, you made it. Everything's set. They're expecting a full house. He hands me a copy of the auction program. My collection occupies the final slot of the evening, right after an Italian oil painting. I suppose they saved the drama for last. The jewelry is displayed again, each piece glowing under soft lights. A crowd gathers near the glass case, whispering admiration. I overhear fragments Edwardian craftsmanship quite rare. Did you hear the backstory? The husband? The secret receipt? Unbelievable. It's almost surreal hearing my life turned into myth, edited for entertainment. I find a chair off to the side and sit quietly watching the ebb and flow of fascination. Then a familiar voice breaks through the noise. Mom. I turn and see Adam approaching, wearing a suit he clearly borrowed for the occasion. Beside him, Chloe looks striking in red, her expression unreadable. You both came? I say, softly. We wouldn't miss it, Adam replies. Besides, Chloe adds with a small smile, someone has to keep an eye on those collectors. It's meant as a joke, but there's warmth in it, not venom. I accept it as progress. The auction begins with other items, paintings, sculptures, artifacts, each accompanied by that theatrical rhythm of bids and gavel knocks. My collection is last, which means plenty of time for nerves to build. Between lots, I glance at Adam and Chloe. They whisper occasionally, probably about the numbers flying across the room, but their faces are softer than before. Maybe humility is contagious. Finally, the auctioneer clears his throat. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our final presentation this evening, the Langford-Hemsworth Collection. A murmur runs through the audience like a shiver. Spotlights pivot, illuminating the jewelry where it rests on velvet. Discovered by Mrs. Evelyn Langford, he continues, this collection represents one of the last known works personally crafted or gifted by Arthur Hemsworth. Each piece has been authenticated and documented in our archives. As he speaks, the screen behind him displays a photo of my husband and Hemsworth outside the London shop, the same one I found tucked away in that shoebox. Seeing it enlarged like that steals my breath. My husband's smile, frozen in time, feels suddenly alive again, watching me from decades ago. The crowd seems fascinated. Someone whispers, "What a story." The first piece, the ruby necklace, comes up. "We'll open bidding at 10,000, the auctioneer announces. Immediately, hands rise. 12,000, 15, 20. The room hums with tension like an orchestra tuning. I sit motionless, watching the numbers climb, detached yet present. By the time the hammer falls, it's doubled the estimate. Applause follows. Daniel glances at me, eyes shining. "That's incredible," he whispers. I smile, but my eyes are fixed on the necklace being carried away. For a moment, I feel a flicker of sadness, like letting go of a memory too soon. Next, the sapphire earrings. The bids start higher this time, energy building. Chloe grips Adam's arm as the price surges past 50,000. "Are they serious?" she murmurs. He nods, amazed. When the final gavel comes down, the applause is louder, more alive. I notice tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, not because of the money, but because suddenly, after all the years of mockery, silence, and doubt, this room full of strangers sees what my family once refused to see, that my life, my love, my history was never ordinary. Finally, the emerald bracelet, the one I'd worn while stirring soup, the one Chloe once called souvenir store chic. The auctioneer introduces it as the centerpiece of the collection. His voice carries reverence, almost tenderness. "We'll begin at 25,000. The bids leap instantly like fireworks, 30, 40, 50. At 65, there's a pause, then a new paddle rises in the back, an older woman, elegant, serene. 70,000, the auctioneer calls. Silence follows. Then the hammer falls. Applause again, this time accompanied by a kind of collective sigh. It's over. The Langford-Hemsworth collection officially belongs to history, now no longer just memories in my dusty jewelry box. Daniel approaches beaming. "Mrs. Langford, you've made history tonight." I laugh softly. "No, Daniel," I say. "I just remembered I existed." Adam and Chloe join me. "Mom." Adam says quietly, "I don't know what to say." I touch his arm. "Then don't say anything. Just feel it." He nods, blinking hard. Chloe takes a breath, then smiles faintly. "They were beautiful," she says. "You were right." I chuckle. Those two words could have funded an empire. She laughs genuinely this time. For once, the sound doesn't sting. As the crowd begins to thin, Daniel hands me an envelope with the official results. The total is staggering, more money than I've ever seen written beside my name. But what surprises me most is how little it moves me. Validation, yes. Relief, yes. But greed, no. I've lived long enough to know that peace of mind is worth more than any figure on paper. Outside, the night air is crisp and alive. Flashbulbs from the photographers still flicker near the entrance as I step out, the silver brooch glinting under the lights. Reporters call out questions. "How does it feel? What will you do next?" I simply smile. "I'll sleep well." I answer and keep walking. Adam catches up to me, offering his arm again. "Want a ride home?" he asks. I nod. The drive is quiet, soft jazz playing on the radio. Halfway there, he says, "You know, Chloe told me she's been thinking about starting a small jewelry line, maybe inspired by your story." I grin. Imitation, the sincerest form of apology. He laughs, and for the first time in months, it feels natural. When we reach my house, I step out and look up at the night sky. The stars are faint but steady, stubborn in their shine. I turn to Adam. "Tell Chloe she doesn't need to ask for forgiveness," I say. "Just respect." He nods. "You've got it, Mom." Inside the house is quiet again. The table where the jewelry box once sat looks strangely bare but not empty. It feels like space for something new. I pour myself a cup of tea, sit by the window, and watch the moonlight spread across the living room floor. People still debate whether vindication ever really heals old wounds. I think maybe it doesn't need to. Some wounds aren't meant to close. They're meant to remind you that you survived. The real victory isn't the applause or the money. It's the moment you realize you were never the fool they thought you were. When I finally crawl into bed, I whisper into the darkness, "You'd be proud of me, darling." Somewhere deep inside, I imagine my husband's familiar chuckle, that mix of pride and mischief. And I fall asleep smiling, feeling for the first time in years like every version of myself finally came home. The morning after the auction feels like the calm after a long storm, that quiet moment when everything looks the same, yet nothing is. The first rays of light touch the edge of my curtains, and for a second, I forget what day it is. Then I see the newspaper on my doorstep. The headline isn't about me by name, but I can tell. Historic jewelry sale breaks, local record mystery widow, behind Hemsworth discovery. A mystery widow. I laugh softly. They could have written woman who outlived everyone's doubts. That would have been more accurate. I make breakfast the way I always do, eggs, coffee, a slice of toast slightly burned on the edges, but the kitchen feels lighter, freer. For years, this house carried a weight I couldn't name. Now it breathes. It's not the money, though. That's certainly a comfort. It's something smaller, quieter, a sense that the story has finally looped back to where it was meant to end. People still debate whether closure is something you find or something you make. I think it's both. You find it when you're brave enough to stop chasing it. By mid-morning, I receive a call from Daniel. "Mrs. Langford," he says, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Just wanted to let you know that the museum is planning to host a short-term exhibition in your honor, a retrospective on rediscovered personal histories. They'd like to display the photos and the letter from Hemsworth if you're comfortable." I smile into the phone. In my honor. My husband would be insufferable if he heard that. Daniel laughs. "Then it's perfect. Congratulations again, truly." When I hang up, I sit back and let the words "in your honor" sink in. They sound almost foreign, not because I don't feel deserving, but because so few people ever say them to women my age. The world forgets us too easily, like we're side characters in everyone else's plot. But this time I wrote the ending. The rest of the day flows in a gentle rhythm. I open the windows, let the wind drift through the curtains. The scent of lilacs from Mrs. Clark's garden sneaks in. She's out front watering her plants, waving when she spots me. "You did it," she calls, beaming. I wave back. "We did." I answer and mean it. She was the first to remind me I wasn't crazy when everyone else laughed. Around lunchtime, Adam drops by carrying takeout and wearing that same uncertain smile. "I figured we could celebrate," he says, placing the bag on the counter. "I even remembered your favorite chicken salad with extra olives." "You remembered, I tease." "Miracles do happen." He laughs. "Chloe helped." "She's been watching your interviews online." "Interviews?" I ask, startled. He shrugs. "Someone filmed you leaving the auction. You've gone mildly viral. Everyone loves your line, 'I'll sleep well.'" I blink, half amused, half horrified. "Goodness, I didn't mean to sound poetic." "Well, Adam says sitting down you did. People think you're this mysterious, classy grandmother with a secret past." I grin. Finally, the reputation I deserve. Over lunch, we talk easily, the tension between us replaced by a comfortable quiet. He tells me Chloe wants to apologize properly, not with gifts or excuses, but with dinner. I agree, though. I add, "Tell her I'm bringing Mrs. Clark as my bodyguard." He laughs so hard he nearly chokes on his sandwich. After he leaves, I take a walk around the neighborhood. It's strange how differently people greet you when your name has floated through the local news. The same women who used to nod curtly now wave with smiles a little too wide. Even Mr. Jameson, who never once offered to carry my groceries, hurries across the street to open his gate. "Heard about your big night, Evelyn," he says proudly, as if he'd been my business partner all along. I just smile, grateful but detached. Fame, even the small-town kind, is just gossip with better lighting. When I return home, the house feels alive again. I sit in the living room, gazing at the framed photograph of my husband and Hemsworth. For years, that image would have filled me with questions, jealousy, maybe even resentment. But now all I feel is peace. Whatever secret those two men shared, it brought me to this moment. Maybe the past doesn't always need to confess. Sometimes it just needs to guide. The trust paperwork arrives in the mail later that afternoon. I review it carefully, signing where needed, then add one final note: to support widowed women in rediscovering their strength through art and community. My hand shakes slightly as I write the last line, not from age, but from a quiet joy I haven't felt in decades. It feels poetic, closing the loop, the jewels that once symbolized love loss and misunderstanding, now funding something alive, something bright. As dusk settles, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea. Mrs. Clark joins me holding 2 slices of pie. For the famous lady, she jokes. We eat in silence for a while, the cicadas humming somewhere in the distance. You know, she says after a while, there's a calm in you now I haven't seen before. I nod. I think I finally stopped needing to prove who I am. She smiles. That's how you know you've won. When she leaves, I stay outside watching the sky fade from gold to lavender. I think about my husband again, the way he used to lean in close whenever I was angry, whispering, "Someday, this will all make sense." Maybe it just did. Later that night, I record a short video message for Daniel's team to play at the museum's opening. I don't write a script. I just speak from that quiet place between exhaustion and gratitude. To anyone who's ever been dismissed, doubted, or spoken over, I say into the camera, remember, truth doesn't need defending. It just waits. Sometimes for years. But when it arrives, it shines. I pause, smile gently, then add, and when it does, make sure you're still there to enjoy the light. I stop recording, rewatch it once, and decide it's enough. No filters, no edits, just my voice, steady, calm, certain. Before bed, I pour myself a small glass of wine, my nightly ritual. I raise it toward the photograph on the mantel. You were right, I whisper. You always did know how to make an ending memorable. The house is silent except for the ticking of the clock. I glance around the empty table where the jewelry box once sat, the stack of letters, the faint outline of sunlight on the floorboards, and I feel a rare kind of peace. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just peace. People still debate whether justice in family ever truly exists. I don't know the answer. What I do know is this. I stood up once quietly, and the world noticed. That's enough. I finish my wine, set the glass down, and dim the lights. Good night, I whisper to the house, to the past, to the people who finally learned to listen. The wind outside rustles through the trees like a soft applause, and as the darkness folds around me, I smile one last time. Not because I won, but because I finally stopped needing to. And that, my friends, is where this long, quiet storm finally settles. Funny, isn't it? We spend years trying to be heard when maybe all we ever needed was to stop whispering to the wrong people. Tonight I sit here with the lights dimmed low, the house warm, and the faint hum of the city somewhere beyond my window. The world outside doesn't know my name, and that's perfectly fine. It knows my story now, and sometimes that's enough. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that truth doesn't arrive with fanfare. It slips in quietly like sunlight through an old curtain, illuminating everything that was always there. Respect, love, self-worth. They don't come from what others hand you. They come from what you refuse to give up on. So if you're listening tonight and you've been doubted, overlooked, or made small by the people you love most, remember, you don't need permission to shine. You just need patience. People still debate whether time heals or simply teaches. I think it does. Both it teaches first, heals later. And somewhere in between, you learn to forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. So before you turn off your screen, take a breath. Look around your space, however big or small, and know that you are already enough, not because someone else says so, but because you're still here, listening, surviving, learning. To my subscribers, my quiet night listeners, and everyone who sits through my long stories, thank you. You're the reason I keep whispering into this mic when the world goes still. Now turn off the lights, maybe keep the fan on for that soft hum of comfort, and sleep easy tonight. Good night, my friends.